Ask my question.
I'll introduce you, and you can start, Herb, telling about your background, and then I may ask questions as we go along. This is Damian Macy, representing the Friends of the Marshall Public Library Oral History Project. Today is Wednesday, October the 14th of 2015, and I'm at the library with Herb Spires. Herb is a long-term member of the Marshall community, and with that, I'll introduce you to Herb and let him tell his story.
I was born 3 miles south of Clarksville in 1930. And I'm from a family of 7. There was 2 girls and 5 boys, and they are all deceased except myself.
Wow.
And the 27th day of November, I will be 85. And during that time, I went to school at Green Moss School, which was a mile west of where we lived, and I walked to school for all those 8 years and enjoyed my time I spent in grade school. And then I went to high school, and from that time I was employed with Farm Bureau here in Marshall for a while, and then in 1951 I enlisted in the Navy. I spent 4 years in the Navy and came home in 1955, and I had an opportunity to work at the Velsico for 4 years, and then I had an opportunity to go to a Standard oil station, and I run a station for Standard Oil until they switched over to Amoco, and then I opened an Amoco station on the interstate probably in '69. That'd be about right.
All right. Mm-hmm.
And then I was in the station business for 18 and a half years, and then I've always been associated with the farm. My brother farmed for a living, and I always during planting and harvest time helped him, and then I had an opportunity in probably 1984 or 5, I went to work for the Department of Transportation, and I worked there until I retired in 2003. And that brings us up to there, but I would also like to enter the fact that I'm proud to be a member of a patriotic family. In my family, there was, like I said, 2 girls and 5 boys, and 4 of those boys served in the military. And then our only son came along, and he served 5 years in the Navy also and retired with 20 years. He served. He served 5 years in active duty, and then he served the other 15 in active reserve. And like I said, he had 20 years in that he served there, and then he retired a few years ago. But my oldest brother Wayne was in the Army, and he was a survivor of the Battle of the Bulge.
Oh my.
And they had an organization after the years. They got together, the survivors of the Battle of the Bulge, and he always was active in that and attended the meetings annually. And then my next brother, Chester, was in the Navy, and he served in the South Pacific on an aircraft carrier, whereby they got hit 2 or 3 times with kamikazes, and they had to go into Pearl Harbor for repair, went into dry dock. And then my next brother was on a destroyer, and he also served in the South Pacific. And then myself was privileged to go to the Navy in 1951, and I served during the Korean situation, and I was also home ported in Hawaii, and we served out of there. And then when the time came, we went to Sasebo, Japan, and that was our home port when we were overseas. And we would go from Sasebo to Korea, and we went up the east coast of Korea, and a number of times we were close to the 38th parallel. And then when we came back, I was privileged to get together with some friends of mine that was on a ship together. And in 201, that would have been our 50th anniversary.
Right, yes.
And a friend from Tulsa, Oklahoma, got on the computer and found out the addresses and contacted us, and there was about a half a dozen of us got together that served on this ship. And since 201, we have gotten together as veterans every year. We met a number of times in Branson, and we have also got together at different guys' houses. Now, as time goes on, it's not too pleasant, because just last summer we lost one of our Navy buddies. He had heart condition, and he also had lung problems, and he passed away last summer. And then probably my favorite Navy friend, bless his heart, he has a bad case of Alzheimer's, and it hurts me to just go and talk to him, because you can't understand what he says. Now, however, his first wife passed away, and he remarried, and the lady that he remarried is about 20 years younger than what John was. And as a result, she can interpret his conversation, because I can't understand because she's around him all the time. And it's just marvelous, and I tell him that he ought to be thankful that he has someone to care for him that much.
Where does he live?
He lives in Angola, Indiana.
Not too awfully far then, was it?
Yeah, and in fact, before the snow flies, we're going up there to visit
Wonderful.
John and Val. And his brother also served on the ship, and his name is Rusty. And I can't, Russell, that's his nickname. His nickname is Rusty. But anyway, we're going to try and go up there and see him again. We were probably, maybe early in the spring we were up there before. And so it's always a blessing to go and
does the same person end up putting this together each year? And is he the one that determines where you meet?
Not necessarily. We just talk back and forth, and then since the traveling has got difficult for her, we don't travel that much and go to it anymore. Yeah, if you want to see John, I pretty near got to drive up there to see him. Because
Well, it's great that you've kept in touch, and that's, I know sometimes not easy
marvelous.
to do.
Yeah,
People
marvelous.
move and you lose contact so easy.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's been a blessing each time that we get together. And it reminds me of times like when you have a graduation get together. It's rewarding to me to reestablish old friends and strengthen your friendship. And that's the same way with these guys that I served with, because it's rewarding.
Are there any that have said, no, I really don't want to meet?
No.
That's interesting, because usually there's someone that's just pulls away and just doesn't want to participate.
Yeah.
That's great.
No, we didn't have any.
Herb, I'm going to go back, way back there when you were in that Green Moss school and as a youngster, and you mentioned walking to school. Have you kept in touch with any of those students, or do you know where any of them are? I'm sure a few of them might be around here.
One of the girls that was in school, in fact, her mother taught school there.
Oh.
Her name was Eleanor Ann Swartz. Helen Swartz and Elmer. That's where they came from. And Helen was a very good teacher.
With that school, I know at that time there were no school buses. There were a lot of things that were not available. And do you remember what you did say at recess? What you as this group did at recess?
Oh man, we were always very active. When we could, we went outside and we played games of all kinds imaginable. And one of my experiences was that we were playing keep away with the football, and I had the football, and this guy was a younger teacher. He hadn't been teaching very long. But anyway, as a result, I had the ball, and he came to get me and fell on me or sat down on me or something and broke my collarbone.
Oh my gosh. That hurts.
Oh dear.
So you had a football injury at a young age then? What, are there anything in particular that you remember about that school? I mean, just about the environment that you were in?
I can remember that in the wintertime, this classmate would ride his horse to school. And he came from the west of the school, and I came from the east. But when he went home, he had to come up and come by the school like that, whereby I went down this road and went this way. Well, lo and behold, as young boys might be, ornery, but we decided that we would race our horses. I mean, he had a horse that maybe had a gate or two, and my old horse was just an old plug, but that didn't bother me. I was going to race him anyway, see, and we'd find out. But anyway, it so happened this evening that we decided to race. It had rained. And when we raced, these kids were walking up the road like that, and we was throwing mud a mile high. And so the teacher, Mrs. Swartz, Helen Swartz, she got us together and said, now boys, I don't want you racing up the road anymore. So them smart aleck boys decided, well, she didn't say anything about racing down the road. So the next evening, we raced down the road, and poor old Joe, he had to go by the school on the way home, and I just went on home. But anyway, she stopped Joe when he come by the school, and he had to stay in and took his punishment. And he got in trouble twice because he was supposed to be home about an hour ago, and he wasn't home yet. But the next day it was my turn, and I'll never forget that. On the school, on the front of the room, there was a blackboard, and it went clear across the front of the room. And our punishment was, or at least mine was, that you start over here on this side and write your multiplication tables to 12. And then you'd do it about 2 or 3 times here, and then you'd move over and you'd do it 2 or 3 times here. And you'd go clear across that big, long blackboard. Wow. And then when you got finished over there, you would take your eraser and come back over here and start over. And then you'd start all over again, see. And I'll never forget when, after I had done this, Helen said to me, she said, "Now, do you think if I tell you not to race anymore, you won't?" And I said, "Well, I guess so." And she said, "Well, now, if you don't know for sure, we got plenty of time. We'll just write some more numbers."
I'll bet that helped you remember your multiplication tables too, didn't it?
Yeah, it sure did. And then the other fun experience that I had at Greenmount, they used to have the school board was a lot of the kids' fathers, you know.
Sure.
And they would come to school and have their, like on Friday afternoon sometime, you know, till then to go home, whenever, they would have their meeting at the school. Well, the boys didn't have anything to do. And one of the boys, he was the oldest one in school at that time, had gotten some cigarettes from his father or someone. And there was, I'm sure there was a half a dozen of us. And the little old outhouse sat down here, and we were down there, and everybody was a puffing on that, and the smoke was just rolling out of that. So we got in trouble again, and the teacher, she punished us, and this poor guy that was ahead of me, the guy that I was in the race with, he was kind of I'll say, a bashful sort of a boy, and he would rather taken a beating than what the punishment got, because he had to sing a song a cappella in front of the whole class. And poor old Joe got up there. You probably know who I'm talking about, Joe Blagg.
Sure do.
Yeah, Joe Blagg.
Oh yeah.
And old Joe, I'll never forget that, had to get up and sing a song in front of the class. But the rest of us had to also, but it didn't bother some of us like it did Joe.
Next time I see him, I'm going to have to tell him to sing me a song.
Yeah.
When you were at school, I know there wasn't a refrigerated drinking fountain. I know you didn't have hot meals. I know you didn't have air conditioning. What about lunch or meals that you took? Did your mother, I sure, fixed up something for you? Do you remember what those were?
Yeah, I can't remember now what it was, but it might have been a ham sandwich or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or whatever. But we was from a poor family. And in fact, I was born during the Depression, see, in 1930.
The students have to pump water to get something to drink and bring
Oh,
it
yeah.
in. And everyone had their own tin cup, right?
Yeah. We used it whichever one was sitting there.
And no one was worried about germs either, were they?
No. And we all survived.
You did, right. Did you have a particular or a favorite subject in school? Something that you liked? Really well?
Probably I enjoyed math more than I did English.
Even though you had to write the multiplication tables out.
Yeah.
At home, did you have some particular chores that you had to take care of with the family?
Yeah. We had a few chickens, and we had 3 or 4 old cows, and we had some hogs, and part of our evening chores was to make sure that the chickens had to feed and the pigs had to feed and the old cows got milk. And then you would take that milk to the milk house and run it through the separator. That would separate the cream from then on Saturday night you could bring the cream to town and sell it for a little money to get some groceries for the next week. And that was part of our chores.
Now, in that particular area, did you do your shopping at Clarksville or Marshall?
The necessities, I mean, it was a deal to come to town.
Do you remember the stores here that you
Yes,
dealt with?
some of them. I remember over there, do you remember Grabenhammer's?
Oh, I sure do.
We did our shopping there, and you didn't have, at that time, you didn't have 9 changes of clothing. In the fall, you got a new pair of overalls and a blue shirt, and that did you for the winter. And when you came home, you took off your school clothes and put on your work clothes.
I remember Mother used to take me into Grabenheimer's, and I got 2 new pair of blue jeans every August. We'd come down to Wilfon's and I'd get a shirt, and I think I got some shoes at Grabenheimer's too, and basically those lasted the whole year.
Exactly.
And I remember Grabenheimer's too with the high cases, and there were usually hat boxes around the top.
Yeah.
And Amelia was sitting back in the raised desk looking at things in the back.
Yeah. And these are some of the values that we have lost today because kids have no sense of responsibility whatsoever, and they think that money grows on trees, and they just, I mean, it's kind of scary, really.
And they're all now walking around with an iPad and a cell phone on their ear.
And it's about as bad as, I don't know anything about that marijuana and stuff, but it's about as bad to them because they're addicted to those machines.
Sure.
I mean, if you don't have it, you're in trouble.
And I wonder about the association, you know, they really don't have much personal contact.
No.
And
They don't even know how to carry on a conversation with a neighbor.
Right.
And they don't know who's sitting next to them.
And don't carry apparently either.
And I'm sure that I've noticed because I have been to McDonald's up there, and you see 3 girls are sitting in a booth, and every one of them's doing this, and I don't know but what they're talking to each other.
They just as well stayed home.
Exactly.
I guess that's part of modern things, and that's why I was asking you about the, life on the farm. And did your milk, by any chance, ever come into the Kraft cheese plant down here by the railroad?
I think at one time, yes. I think it's at some time in our life that we had association with the cheese plant.
Mm-hmm. What about going to downtown Clarksville? Do you remember what all was there as far as the stores were concerned?
Yeah,
Maybe?
and a lot of persons went to Emma Fox's store.
Oh, yes.
That was on the west side, and Riley Baker's store was on the east side.
Okay. Now that one I don't remember.
And Emma was a hard worker. He left his store open all the time, except on Sunday afternoon. He didn't shut down to go to church or anything, but he closed that thing down. And then on top of that, while he wasn't working at the store, he would go out to his farm and work that Sunday afternoon because he didn't have nothing to do at the store. But yeah, and there was a lot of friendship there.
Were those stores both what you would call a general store that sold
Yeah.
just about everything?
Yeah, and probably Emil more than Baker. But Emil had a little old 1.5-ton truck, and he drove to Terre Haute, and the things that he needed to resell, he would go over there, get them, take them back home. Yeah.
There was a gentleman that I knew, he was up in years, but Charlie Clapp.
Charlie Clapp,
Did-
fine man.
Did he have a huckster wagon? I remember him telling some stories about his huckster wagon.
I'm thinking maybe that Emil did also.
Could be.
Yes. And they would come by maybe once a month or whatever, or every 3 weeks or something. Yeah. Yeah.
On that, going back, I guess, to the school, I think I probably know what your heating system was in there.
Yeah, coal.
Well, you had coal?
Oh, yeah.
No wood, huh?
We had coal fire. Man, we're uptown.
Did the students have to take care of that, or was that all teachers' responsibility?
Well, as I remember, probably the boys would help sometimes to fuel the furnace.
Because those ashes, once you burned the coal, then those ashes had to go back out.
Yeah.
When living on the farm, I'll bet you had a pet of some kind too, didn't you?
A what?
A pet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we always had a dog.
Was one of them just yours, or were they family pets?
They were just pets. And then, I don't know if you remember, maybe they still have or something, but we always had 3 colored cats. You ever hear of 3 colored cats? That's what we had, 3 colored cats.
They had a name, and I don't remember what the name
Calico.
was. Calico. Yep.
Yeah, calico cats.
With the leaving school and going on into your experience in the Navy, you mentioned Korea.
Yep.
Did you have any opportunity at all to do some, I guess I'd say, sightseeing or touring around some of the foreign countries that you're in?
Yep. More so in Japan than in Korea because of the activities that was going on. But we did get to go ashore a couple of times in Korea. And then we would say, the ship that I was on was a rescue and salvage ship.
Oh.
Now, and by that I mean that they would give those Japanese, and I call them gooks, but they'd give those gooks an LST, and they knew as little navigation as anybody, and they would take them ships, and they were supposed to drop the anchor out here, and then they could help with that anchor to pull themselves back. Well, they forgot to drop the anchor, and they'd just sail up on the beach like that, and then they'd call us and say, "Hey, we've got a ship on the beach down here." And sometimes in that experience, they would be so high on the shore that the tide comes in and the tide goes out.
Sure.
In order to get off of the shore, you'd have to wait till the tide come in.
Uh-huh.
Now, this ship that I was on was a pretty strong, it was small, but it was a strong ship, because what we did was, when we was to pull a ship off of the beach over there, we would, a few fathom out, we would drop the anchor, and we would pay out the chain and back up like that.
Okay.
Then when we backed up, got close enough, we would hook onto the other vessel.
Okay.
And then, as a result, on top of that, they had a steam-operated capstan on there, which was probably at least 6 foot across, the capstan and big. And it was steam-operated with an 1 7/8 cable that you put out there. And with all these things involved, we could put a pretty strong pull on whatever we was pulling, because they could do that, and the guys would run the capstan, and the captain of the ship would fire up the ship, and we would use the rudders, turn them up full blast, use the capstan, the steam-operated capstan, plus the anchor. We'd have the anchor out here. We was pulling in the anchor and all this other stuff. You get a pretty good pull on stuff.
Are any of those same techniques used today, or do you know?
I wouldn't have any idea.
I know engineering, it all changes so much over time.
Yeah.
Did you ever learn to speak any
No.
Korean or Japanese? Or
No.
anything?
I think I'll take that back, because I know what it means to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ichi ni san shi go. And an agreement, and if you was talking to them gooks or something, they're also that agreement.
Regardless of what you were telling him.
Yeah, also.
Oh, dear.
And then outside of that, I got on another vessel, and it was called an AKS. It was a cargo supply ship, and we carried supplies to the other ships. And in that tour of duty, we went down to the Philippines and South Indochina. We're there for a while.
Have you had any chance at all over the years to go back to any of those places and visit?
No, I haven't. But when I went in, at that time, me and a friend of mine enlisted. In fact, he was one of these guys that got together. He passed away now also, but we enlisted together, and back at that time, we were sworn in over at Indianapolis, and one week they was sending them to Chicago, Great Lakes, and the next week they'd send them to San Diego. So I happened to be lucky enough to draw San Diego. So I went to San Diego and took my basic training out there. And then I can't tell you how many years exactly. It was probably about 45 years anyway. Our son enlisted in the Navy, and he took his basic training in San Diego. And my wife and I was privileged that when he graduated out of boot camp, we were in attendance there.
Nice.
And
that's a beautiful city.
Yeah, and there was so many things at the naval base that changed since I was there, but some of the same barracks and so on, I mean, they had all been remodeled and redone, like the galley where you went, like if you were off the ship and wanted to go to the galley to eat, why, they had this, you used to just go in one door and get in line, and then they had changed that over till it had 4 doors on it. I mean, you went in on each side and got in the line and stuff like that. And I told him that the only thing that I thought had changed since I was there was the fact that the cracks in the grinder got larger, and there was more grass growing on the grinder than there was when I was there. But that again, after I came home, if you remember, Harold Elshoff.
Oh, yes.
Okay. I think he went in the Navy about a year ahead of me. And he went to music school, and I would presume he forgot more about music than these guys teaching me. But nonetheless, over a cup of coffee up there, what was that restaurant up there north of the interstate called at first?
I can't honestly remember. I remember going there.
Yeah. Well, he and I was up there having a cup of coffee one night, and we got to talking. And he served, after he got out of music school, he served in the Pentagon for a while and played in the band there. Yeah. Then he got transferred to San Diego and was a part of the band on the bass, playing for the guys that marching to the band. And I found out that, and we didn't either one know this, but he was playing in the band when I was going to basic training.
I'll be darned.
I found that out after I got home.
Amazing how things do come out, and the contacts and all that overlap. Did you ever consider making the military a career?
No, but I'm stupid for not. But back to Harold, if you can believe it now, and this is a fact, Sasebo, Japan was about 11,500 miles away from Marshall. And so help me, one Sunday afternoon, when we were up on the front, you might say, the captain said that it would be all right if we wanted to grow a beard and keep it trim. So I had, excuse me, so I had this beard, and on one Sunday afternoon I was walking down the street in Sasebo, Japan, 11,000 miles away from Marshall, and who should I run into but Harold Elshoff.
I'll be there.
I did.
It's a small world.
And that's what I told him. And ever since that, each one of us would call the other Sasebo Kid. We'd say Sasebo Kid, and we'd each answer each other.
I'm surprised the beard was permitted, because that used to be such a no-no.
Yeah.
Everything trimmed and short.
I've got some pictures down the house. I didn't bring them. Oh, I was supposed to bring a picture, wasn't I?
Yeah, Edie would like to have one.
Well, I don't know if I picked one out.
Sometime you can just drop by. She'll copy it and then give it back to you. You won't keep it.
Well, now I just, and he didn't seem to think that it amounted to too much, but I don't know how many years ago it's been. Maybe you can remember what year it would have been or so. But Gary printed up, and he interviewed each one of us, Chester and Wayne and Paul, and we each had comments that we put together. And he put the 4 of our pictures on the front page of the Advocate, and our son also, Kelly, was in that same paper. And I asked him if he had them. He didn't have much to go by, and he doesn't have any index about, looking them up if you'd have to.
I remember it being in there. I remember it was in the
That's-
paper.
I
But I don't
can't-
know what year or, have any idea where it was.
But I can't, and I thought I had some, maybe I'd given them all away, I don't know, I hope not, but we couldn't find one.
Back through the archives.
But anyway, I thought about that, and he didn't seem to think that that was important for this, that you could do, but I could have commented more probably on the patriotism of my family that I'm
Sounds
proud of.
remarkable.
Yes.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because that's exactly what we're talking to you about family and your history.
Yeah, and I'm like I said, I'm very proud to be a part of that.
Now, were you married when you were in the service?
No,
Okay.
no.
Where did you meet that young lady then?
Well, that was kind of I don't know, unusual opportunity, I guess. But I had her. She was from Robinson, and I met her, and we courted for a year, and then we were married in 1965. And incidentally, on the 7th day of June, we celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. And this is a picture that I was going to bring with me tonight.
That's great.
I don't know what it is, but I can get it.
That's a nice milestone because my wife and I just passed our 53rd.
Is that right? Yeah, it is.
And I'll put, it probably shouldn't even be on there, but when we were on a cruise one time, the subject of anniversaries came up around a dinner table. And at that time, I think we had been married 40 years. And someone else had been married 25, and this gentleman said he had been married 55 years. And everyone said, oh, what a remarkable milestone, that's just fabulous. And went on talking, and pretty soon he kind of said, well, I guess I really ought to be honest with you folks. I've been married 55 years. But I've been married to Sally 10, Susie 15. He had been married 4 times, and they all added up to 55. And what is your wife's name?
Jolene, Jol.
Okay.
EEN.
Okay. And she's from Robinson, huh?
Yes, she's from Robinson. Her maiden name was Parker.
Does she still have family down in the Robinson area then, too?
She has some nephews, and that's all that's left. She had a brother, and he passed away, and her mom and dad's both passed away.
You mentioned working for Velsico for a while.
Woody Keys. You remember Woody Keys?
I sure do. His daughter was in my class.
I came home from the military in January, and then along in that, probably January, February, in March or April, I had the opportunity to go there, and I worked there for 4 years. So it would have been 59, and you remember a guy by the name of Hank? What was his name that run that station before I did? But nonetheless, back to this. The Velsico was, I don't know, they was having some problems with the contract and this, that, and the other thing. And, they had to hire the outsiders to come in to settle the problem, and as a result, we was out of work for a while because they was arguing over that. And I just thought to myself, and I had an opportunity to get that station, and I took it, and I didn't go back to the Velsico.
Did you ever feel uncomfortable working there? I mean, a certain amount of a danger in what was going on around you. You never felt uneasy with that?
No, I didn't. But I know some guys, and I'll not mention any name, but when you would climb up on those towers or tanks or something, there were some guys that couldn't take it. I mean, they
all the way down.
I mean, when they'd get to the top, they'd hold on to something pretty firmly. And the
Why
same way it started back down.
Where was the station, your first station with Standard Oil? Where was that located?
2nd Street. At the end of 2nd Street. You remember where it was? That little old Amco station there.
It was kind of right next to the Lincoln Motel.
Exactly. Across the street from the Colonial Kitchen.
Yeah.
It's a good place to drink coffee at Colonial Kitchen.
Did you ever have a location downtown?
For a little while. You remember Earl Sumption's station?
Yes.
I had all 3 stations at one time. I had that one out there and a double headache.
Okay, the one station here was Assumptions that you mentioned.
Yeah,
Where was the third one?
up on the interstate.
Okay. And those are all under the Standard Oil umbrella thing?
Yeah. And we had Cliff Eddington run the other station up there on the interstate when we opened. And so it was a good position to be in, because when we first opened, the interstate ended right there.
That's right.
So you got to get off and go by. And anytime you got that much traffic coming by the frontage road, it's a good deal. And then they went back over to Martinsville or Casey and got back on the interstate. But during this time, those guys that wear a white shirt and carry a briefcase, when that interstate opened up and went by, those guys couldn't figure out, well, what happened to your gallonage? I mean, you must be doing something totally wrong. I mean, you can't have this, and they couldn't figure it. Yeah, that's what I thought. Oh dear.
Well, Herb, things have changed so much in the industry that you had. As I recall, you had some service. If someone came in and had a broken radiator hose, you probably had some in the back room you could fix.
Yep.
If someone had a need for a repair item, you had it, and you did oil changes and everything then too, didn't you?
Yeah.
Because anymore, you drive into a station, they don't even know how to get the hood of the car out.
Yeah, that's right. You get gas and that's all.
That's it. Maybe a candy bar.
I would tell you another story, but if you're recording
No,
this,
that's fine if you want to. It's up to you.
When I was on the interstate up there, there was times during the summer months that we stayed open 24 hours. And as a result, some of the guys were working for me. One of them was Wes Romines. In fact, he's in charge of the utilities over at Martinsville now. But anyway, Wes always had a gun. Not particular when it comes to work, but this boy, Wes had a gun, and the other boy knew that he had it for sale, and he said, I'd kind of like to see it, or maybe shoot it a few times before I bought it. So one morning when the shift was changing, before Wes started working, and this boy got there, whatever, I don't remember. But anyway, they took some of those oil cans and went back in the back of the station and throw them guns up. This boy he'd shoot that shotgun. And Cleo Smitley helped me.
Oh, yeah.
He was a wonderful guy. And he's just like the service back then that you get now. I mean, people would come in, you'd get the gas, and you'd go on down the road. But anyway, in the practice, now don't put this down. In the practice part of it, and Cleo was filling up this automobile at the pump. And them guys was out there practicing that. And this boy well, it was Pat Murphy's boy, Brian Murphy. He come around the station and Cleo said, "What are you guys doing out there?" And that one said, "I just got a big buck, nigger." And Cleo said, if there was ever a time I wanted to call and a gas tank was in, because
Oh, yes.
the people he was waiting on was gone. and then I don't know if you remember when or not, but back then it was pretty embarrassing for both of us, because you remember when those polo jokes were popular.
Oh, yes. There was always a bunch of them going around.
Anyway.
Did you pick up a few good ones?
Yeah. Anyway, was up there, and Wes and myself always wanted to exchange our pull-up jokes. See, the first thing you know, I went, don't apologize. And anyway, I went in the station, and I just heard a good pull-up joke. And I wanted to share it with Wes, and I said, "Hey, Wes, did you hear that Pollock joke about it?" And sure enough, those two guys that was buying gas from me, said, they were Pollocks, and it wasn't too much of a conversation.
I guess that's part of the interest of owning a business. There's just no 2 days are alike.
I've always told people that everybody, sometime in their life, the earlier the better, should serve the public at least 2 years, exactly. And they'd have a whole lot different attitude.
Different image.
Exactly. Yeah.
So today, would you ever care to go back to owning a gas station?
No.
Okay. As I say, it changed so much.
Yeah. And when I got out as a service station attendant, it was about the time that full service quit. I mean, we went from full service to
no service.
Yeah, basically, that's right. And that was about the time. And probably, I mean, anytime you sign a contract with a big organization, they're pretty well going to call the plays, whatever it is. Don't make no difference if it's whether they're selling you products or whether they're telling you how much to charge for the gas or something. But this is not good, because you're pretty much obligated to them if you sign that contract. I mean,
do you remember what the price of gallon was per gallon when you sold?
Not when I sold, but I remember what it started. 32.9. 32 and 9 cents.
You kind of say, when you put gas in the car now, boy, that was a good deal.
Yeah. When I had the station out on 2nd Street, it was a fun time, and I feel rewarded that there's two guys that I helped through college by giving them a job, pumping gas, and they appreciated me, and they thanked me very much for it. I get Christmas cards from them, and they always thank me for the service that I did for them, giving them. And this boy one time, well, it would be, you might possibly know him, Dick Eubank's brother, Darrell.
Oh yeah.
Do you?
Oh,
no,
yes.
he runs a insurance company down in southern Illinois somewhere. I don't know the exact name. But anyway, the story I started telling you was about Darrell. Now, sometimes there was only 4 pumps out there at the old station when I began. And one guy might not do too many oil checks and stuff like that and cleaning windows, but because he was busy. And one afternoon, this lady come back, and he happened to have the rest of the pumps full, you know. Well, she finally got there and didn't get waited on just exactly like she would have liked. And she started in on old Darrell and told him that she was pretty much dissatisfied and that she was going to call Standard Oil. And old Darrell just got a quarter out of the cash drawer and said, "Here's a quarter. I don't give a damn who you call." Said never heard nothing more about that.
Darrell I went to Martinsville after I left here, and he was 2 years behind me in school.
Oh, yeah.
And then my mother had him as a student also. She taught us the old North. Well, I know there's a lot of frustrating times in retail, or anytime you're dealing with the public. It's not always smooth sailing.
At this old station, if you can remember green stamps,
Oh, yeah.
I gave away green stamps out there, and I don't know if that was. I probably had a lot of extra customers, but it also cost.
Did you ever get into the giveaway things where there were saucers and pictures and stuff like that too for a while?
No, not so much.
Yeah, okay. But I remember the green stamps. Matter of fact, filled a lot of books of them.
Yeah.
In what year did you start then phasing out of the stations and selling them?
Well, I mostly let things take care of themselves, because when that one went down, you know, when the traffic quit coming by the frontage, you're whistling Dixie, because you need a lot of traffic. And I just phased it out. But fortunately, I sold it to, who did I sell to? I don't remember now, but I was privileged to sell it before I went out of business. And then, then the same way up there, across from the IGA at Earl's station, I had a chance to sell it before I quit, and then I just narrowed it down till I had the one up on the interstate.
So in those, did you actually own the building and the real estate too, or did you lease that?
You just owned the merchandise
Franchise.
inside. Yeah, stuff that you could resell.
Was your wife involved at all in the station business?
No.
Okay.
No.
And your son wasn't either, was he?
No. Yeah, he did go with me when he was little a lot of times when we went up there. And the boys that worked there would aggravate him and torment him. And well, you probably remember them too. One of the boys that I helped in college was Fenton Mackey.
Yeah.
You know him? You know Fenton Mackey. And the other guy's name was Bill Garver. I don't know if you remember him or not. Bill Garver. Emil Garver was his father's name. He lived out on the Switchboard Road. There was a big house on the right going up there. It's no longer there.
What was his first name?
Bill Garver.
Okay. I know Bill Garver that lives over in Casey, but it's a different one then.
Yeah.
Okay.
And both of these guys have done well, and I expect they're retired now too. But both of them end up being school teachers, and Fanny, he's still saying, but I'm not very well satisfied with his promises, because, well, his father was still living, and he'd come down, Herb, someday I'm going to just stop by there and surprise you and visit for a while. And it never happened. See?
I think we all sometimes go beyond what we're capable of actually accomplishing. Well, you sound like you've had a very, very interesting career as business and ownership. With, I guess, Marshall, are there some things that you remember about Marshall that is so different today than maybe it used to be?
Band concert. I don't attend it like I ought to anymore, but I enjoyed going to the band.
Well, I dropped out of the band finally. I played 35 years in it straight. 35 straight years. I thought, time for someone else.
Yeah, and these are some things because it was back then, you know, you lived stuck in the mud out in the country for a while, and you just stayed out there, and it was entertaining just to get to come to town, you know. Once in a while, we'd come into that, and I'll never forget that. And I tell the kids that now, like on band concert night, the sidewalk to the street was full. I mean, yeah, pretty near all the way around. Now down in that part of it, it wasn't quite as highly populated as it was up here at the popcorn wagon, but still, it was crowded.
A crowded downtown.
Yeah.
And most of all the stores, I think, were open at that time too.
Yeah, yeah.
Herb, is there an event or maybe a person who has really influenced you over the years?
Probably I can't think of anyone in particular that has, but I think that you make up these things in your own mind. I mean, if what you want to do, and keep in mind that if you work hard and be honest, it's going to pay off.
Good philosophy.
Yep.
With all the modern conveniences that we have around us all the time, is there something that you would say, gosh, I just couldn't live without that item?
Oh, I don't. I spend too much time probably watching television. Maybe some others do too, I don't know.
I think everyone does.
But it's rewarding to have conveniences. I mean, you leave the house and you leave the television and you get in the truck and the radio's on, so you're getting outside information all the time, you know, wherever we are.
Well, you mentioned that gas, and we were talking about the gas stations, and I remember you would go in and say, I'll fill it up $1 worth.
Yeah,
you could go for a few miles on that.
Yeah.
Today it doesn't even splash on the bottom of the tank. I usually ask, it's sure been enjoyable visiting with you, and I appreciate all your time. Usually one question I ask everyone is the last one. If you're traveling and out some other place in the country, or maybe even another country, and you said, I'm from Marshall, Illinois, and they said, where's that? What's that all about? What would you tell them about Marshall and why they might want to visit here?
Well, first of all, when I think about Marshall, I think about Marshall, Illinois, where the highways cross and the porch lights burn all night. And I think about that. Mm-hmm. And then it's hard to get through to them that actually happened.
Yeah.
You know, because that's just one of the things about Marshall. And the other thing is, I think it's very nice that the band concert is presented yet today, and there's not too many little towns probably have that.
One of the few, I think, here.
Yeah, I bet it is. Yeah.
Well, Herb, I'm delighted visiting with you. It's been a real pleasure, and I will thank you for taking your time out of your busy day to do that.
I might have that picture, and I'll look, and if I have, I'll bring it and give it to her.
Edie.
Whether I'll do it here or...
Okay, Edie Brenneman out the front desk. She's the one that's taking care of the pictures.
What's her name?
Edie. E-D-I-E. She's the one with the real short hair, combed back.
E-D-I-E. What's the other lady's name? That don't seem like the one. Edie's not the one that waited on me, first of all.
Okay.
She's probably the head.
Might have been Jamie. Jamie.
Can't remember now.
Then, well, really any of them can take care of the pictures for you. Yeah.
But anyway, the first time I came in, when they called me and told me I finally got around to coming in, but whatever her name was, and then it had the library on the. Well, I called her by her first name, and now I said her library. That was her last name.
Well, it was a delight.